Okay, so yesterday, we don't need our Chromebooks today, so you can go ahead and close those. Okay, awesome. So yesterday we finished up our quiz. That's still open, so in your own time you can retake it if you have a second attempt. Okay. Then we started talking about Federalists and Anti-Federalists, and John Green introduced that to you via video. So if you weren't here yesterday, you can watch that John Green video. And I also recorded us talking about the differences between the two. And we're still going to continue doing that today and tomorrow. Okay. What were the differences between the two? Caleb?
Federalists wanted more industrialized
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah, they wanted more industry, meaning manufacturing and trade that goes along with that to earn money for the country. How did the Anti-Federalists want to do that? Not necessarily a tax. I mean, there were going to be taxes, but what else?
Small farms.
Yeah, it was small farms, agriculture. Okay, so and that who really wanted to push that? What guy? What founding father? Do you remember? He wrote the Declaration of Independence. Well, I thought I heard it.
Tom.
Yes, it's Thomas Jefferson. Good. So who was kind of leading the Federalists? My name is Alexandre. Alexander Hamilton. Okay. So those are going to be some major characters, real life characters for U.S. history during this time period. Okay. So these two groups basically had to debate one another to try and pass the Constitution. Obviously, the Constitution passed, but they definitely argued for their position. And so you're going to actually hear from two people who argued, one for Anti-Federalists and one for Federalists. And so they're going to tell you why they think it's better, okay, or their position is better. All right, and that's what we're going to look at today. Okay? So, I should have looked at my computers. Sorry. So, when we are looking at documents, what skills are we going to apply to it first? What's that first one we always do? Not quite. We will do that today, for sure.
Sourcing?
Yes, excellent. So we source it. So what does that mean?
We find out where they got the information.
Maybe not where they got their information, but who's they? Yeah, so we got to look at see who's writing this thing. Okay, so and it kind of gives you a up at the top of each document here. Who is the first person? Yeah, I think it's Melancton Smith. So maybe highlight his name. Okay. So we've got Melancton, Mr. Smith here. So when did he write this or say it?
June 21st, 1780.
So June 21st, 1788. Go ahead and highlight that too. So we've got a date, we've got a person, and I will tell you right now, this is a speech. Remember I said they were debating one another? Okay, so let me give you a little bit of context. So this is in New York City, and remember each state has to ratify or approve the Constitution before it actually passes. So they're in New York, and they have met, all the delegates have met, and they are going to be debating whether or not to pass the Constitution, or at least maybe make some changes to it. All right? So you might want to put off to the side before Constitution passes, maybe put a debate, like this is a debate. So the place that it's at is in New York, and this is where it was most contested. if you will, or debated about. Okay.
Really
Okay. So I need yes. Sure. So I need a Melanchthon Smith who can give fiery speeches. Okay, Molly. All right.
So I'm supposed to sound angry or like passionate?
Passionate. Okay, let's be passionate, not angry. So a couple things you could write down is this is a debate. This is in New York. We already know is Melanchthon Smith a Federalist or an Anti-Federalist?
Anti-Federalist.
He's an Anti-Federalist, so that's where it says document A. Okay, maybe highlight that too, or underline or something. Okay. All right, so be passionate. You don't have to be angry. Passionate.
Representatives should be a true picture of the people. They should understand their circumstances and their troubles. Therefore, the number of representatives should be so large that both rich and poor people will choose to be representatives. If the number of representatives is small, the position will be too competitive. Ordinary people will not attempt to run for office. A middle class
Yeoman,
a farmer, will never be chosen. So the government will fall into the hands of the few and the rich. This will be a government of oppression. The rich consider themselves above the common people, entitled to more respect. They believe they have the right to get anything they want.
Okay. So, what is the emotional state of Melanchthon Smith?
He thinks the rich and poor should be treated equally.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah, so he's advocating for what kind of representation then? How much representation? Equal representation. Yes, where both the rich and the poor can participate. So in order to do that, how many are we looking at? A lot. Okay. So he wants representation in our government to be a lot. So let's see, where does it say that? What line does it say that?
Third sentence, first paragraph.
Yep, first paragraph.
Should be so large that
Exactly. Third sentence. Because he wants enough people to represent all groups. What do you think about that? You think that sounds good? Not so good? What do you think?
I think he's gonna have a lot of people.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people in Congress if that's the route they're going to take. Do you think it sounds pretty good?
It sounds good because all people should be represented, not just the people that have money.
Okay. All right. What did he think about? What does he think about the rich?
That they do whatever they want.
He thinks that
They're like
can do
self-entitled, that
anything
they
they
think
want.
that they can get whatever they want.
Yeah, and that's in the last line there. I wonder who Melanchthon Smith is. Do you know? Anybody ever heard of him?
No.
It would be interesting to. I mean, I think I know. I think I remember looking him up last year. I think he was a merchant for New York. Well, what kind of status do you think he has?
A low one.
I assume a pretty decent one because
Yeah. Well, pretty
merchants sold reasons.
Merchants are traders. Okay, so they're trading stuff. He's in New York, and he's debating whether or not to have. So he's a delegate. He's a representative. I think his status is high. So it's really interesting for someone of that position to advocate for, because we don't always hear from the rich advocating for the poor. Does that make sense? So he's like standing up for the little guy, maybe.
Being the bigger person.
So what does he say might happen or will happen if a few people represent us and they're the rich? What kind of government will it be?
A competition.
It'll be oppression. Yeah. And it will be competitive.
Everyone will be like, that position's mine, and then another person will be like, no, it's mine.
Okay.
Leave it
So
alone.
what about today? Is it a competition today?
Yeah.
Is it highly competitive?
Yeah.
And what kinds of people are running?
Rich people.
All right, I need an Alexander Hamilton. I saw Amari earlier, so I'm going to get him. Okay.
I didn't raise my hand or.
Well, there's other stuff on the back that we can look at. Okay.
I just want to raise.
Well, you'll get to. I promise. All right, Amari, you got to be passionate, just like Molly was. So who is speaking here? Yeah, Alexander Hamilton. Highlight that guy. When is he speaking?
June 21st, 1788.
It's the same day. Okay, so we've got people standing up and stating their opinion and their support for either side. Okay, so it's Hamilton's turn next. Go for it.
The Anti-Federalists seem to think that a pure democracy will be the perfect government. Experience has shown that this idea is false. The ancient
Democracies,
of Greece were characterized by
tyranny,
and run by the mob. The Anti-Federalists also argue that a large
representation. Yep.
is necessary to understand the interests of people. This is not true. Why can't someone understand 50 people as well as he understands 20 people? The new constitution does not make a rich man more eligible for an office, for an elected office than a poor person. I also think it's dangerous to assume that men become more wicked as they gain wealth and education. Look at all the people in higher community: the rich, the poor, the educated, the ignorant, and the ignorant. Which group has higher moral standards? Both groups engage in immoral or wicked behavior, but it would seem to me that the behavior of the wealthy is less wicked and sin.
Okay. All right. So what is he wanting from the Constitution? What kind of representation here?
So he thinks everyone's equal.
He thinks everybody?
But he's saying that basically everyone has a chance that no one's higher than you.
Well, in the third paragraph, he says the new Constitution does not make a rich man more eligible for an elected office,
So
but
it basically just kind of means that they're not gonna like kicking the rich people out that try.
okay. Is he for a large representation?
No.
No, and you can see that in the second paragraph. What's the question that he asks?
Why did 750 people as well as the
Exactly. What do you think about that? What do you think about his logic there? Can one person understand 50 as well as 20?
Yeah.
Okay, so that what he's indicating is that it doesn't require as many people as Melanchthon Smith is saying. Okay. My only, in my mind though, how long is it going to take to hear 50 people as opposed to 20 people? A little bit longer. I mean, it's going to take time. Okay. So I don't know how our representatives hear from their district. Like, how many emails do you send to your representative every day? 0. So we really have to reach out to our representatives. They don't, a lot of the time, they don't go out and seek information from us. Okay. But the more people that you represent as a single person, that's a wider variety of opinions as well. Okay. So he's saying that even in Greece, which is where we just got the idea of democracy from, that if everybody participated, it would be, what did he say? It would be characterized by tyranny and run by mobs. What is a mob? What are they doing?
protested.
They could be protesting.
basically a mob is basically 25 million people in like 25 towns on one place doing
And-
something.
Well, what are they doing? A mob is not a good thing.
No.
Most likely
Fighting back.
destroying things.
Destroying things, maybe fighting
I love mobs.
among
though.
themselves, maybe, or other people.
Mobs
Yeah.
are awesome because then it causes conflicts.
Well, that's what he's saying is not a good thing. Okay. All right. Now, this last paragraph, he was doing really good up until that last sentence. What does the last sentence say?
But it would seem to me that the behavior of the wealthy is less wicked and sinful.
So, who is he saying is more wicked and sinful?
The poor.
The poor people. Okay.
It's kind of
What's the majority of the population?
Poor people.
Poor people. So, where has he placed himself then?
In the
middle.
Yeah, he's up at the top. Or, yeah.
I feel like a lot of poor people be like, well, I don't like you anymore.
Do you think the poor people were listening to this debate?
No.
I don't think they were invited to that.
It's not
I don't think
They were too busy farming. Okay, I mean they had,
Which they could have heard about it.
sure.
Maybe
So-
they had a rich friend, I don't know.
So, what is moral? It says which group has higher moral standards? What are morals?
like what you think, some kind of like what you want, like how you want to see yourself, kind of, or like how to explain it. I know what it is, but I just can't explain it.
Maybe Hannah can help you out.
It's like good deeds or good standards that some people just have, like their consciousness affects it. Like killing someone would be like a very moral thing, and it's not a very good standard to have.
Right. So your standards or your moral standards are how you live, like what you live by. So I think probably 99% of the people would say that murdering people would be wrong. And so that's a standard that you live by. Those are your morals. Okay. So what was their moral standard? What was it based on back then? Do you know? What maybe group uses the word sin?
Church,
Okay. So specifically, like what religion would this?
Christianity.
Yeah. So it would be Christianity, like Christian standards that they're talking about. Okay. So he's basically saying he thinks it's dangerous to think that men become more wicked as they gain wealth and education. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's true. I mean, it's not true for everyone, but most of the time, when somebody has more money than other people, it's not all the time that they want to flaunt it and show people that they're higher up than them.
Sure. Some people are like that. Yeah. Does it matter if they're rich though? So some people would still engage in like flaunting whatever they have, even if they don't have a whole lot of money. Okay. What does ignorant mean?
idiotic.
I don't think not in this case.
Not knowing.
Delusion.
Right, not knowing. Okay. So he's saying those who are not educated. Well, only the educated back then were the ones who could afford it. Okay. Or when they say educated, meaning go to school or college. But you remember, most of these people, even the rich, didn't always go to college. It was very few people.
It's because they thought that they're so rich, they don't need education.
Maybe. Or at least a certain group, like the women. Okay. So now we have two. If you were living back then and you heard this debate, which one do you think you would, which side would you pick? The Anti-Federalists? Now, do you see where it says modified?
Yeah.
What do you think that means?
See, it's not exactly what it said, because they use a lot more. Not like it's what he said, but it's kind of like
Short.
summed up.
It's their words for sure. Because yeoman, we don't use yeoman anymore, but give it in parentheses what that meant.
I feel like it's just like it doesn't have all the older English.
Perhaps, but it's not the whole entire speech either. Okay, so you really have to take this with a grain of salt to some extent because we're not getting the whole thing. If you want to look at the whole thing, I do have it for both speeches. Okay, in just a minute. So I want you to turn it over to the back here. And this gives you a good rundown of the differences between Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Okay, and some of these things we mentioned yesterday, and I want to add some of those things that we talked about yesterday. Okay, so look at the Federalist side. We have, of course, Alexander Hamilton there, but there's some others that were mentioned: James Madison, John Jay. Who was the second president? Did you yesterday from the video? He has a cousin named Sam. Drank a lot of beer. John Adams. I'd add his name. It's good to know that John Adams was a Federalist. Federalists tended to be property owners. That's how most people made money back then. Land was extremely important. Okay. Landed rich means they inherited their money from people who own property. And merchants. Merchants are traders. Trade. Make their money through trade. Okay. Merchants? Uh-huh. Yeah, they would. Definitely to go see what other things they could trade with or for sure. Now, the third bullet point here says they believed in elitism. What's the root word there?
Elite.
Elite. What does that mean to you?
Like you're normal. Or like you have.
It could mean that you have more money. But what was that first thing that you said?
Higher.
You are high. Yeah, you're higher. The elite class. You've heard of that term. So they believed in elitism. What that means is they believed that that group of people should be the leaders. Okay. Now, when I was in college, we read a book by George Washington called "In Defense of Elitism," and what he advocated was, and to some extent, this makes sense, that this group of people should be in charge because they've had more experience in leadership, because they do have a higher education. So it's an interesting read. I don't remember much else of that. It says that saw themselves and those of their class as most fit to govern. So here's what they also wanted. They wanted a powerful central government. Okay. They wanted a 2-house legislature. Do you remember what the 2 houses are called? You took a quiz over it. One has 100 people in it.
One has 400.
And one has 435.
Yeah.
Representatives and then the
Yeah. So the Senate has 100 today. They didn't have that many back then. And then the House of Representatives is based on population. Senators, 2 per state. Okay. They wanted a representative democracy. And at the time, with single representatives for 30,000 people. And if we were still doing that, we'd have more than 435 in our House of Representatives. So they had to cut it down. What side, who did they want to be friends with? Do you remember?
The Federalists were England, and then the Anti-Federalists want to be friends with France.
Right. So maybe add in that space or below. Federalists want to be friends with Great Britain. Under the Federalists. And like Caleb said earlier, Federalists wanted to be industrial. I'd add that too. They want to be industrial. Now, if I said that, do you know what that means?
They wanted to make their own goods.
Yes. So if you need to define industry, it means to make products. What else? Anything else you remember about the Federalists yesterday? What they want to tax?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. I know. Do we still tax whiskey? Oh yeah.
Yeah, alcohol was.
Alcohol. All right, so let's take a look at the Anti-Federalists. We already know Thomas Jefferson. Do you see these names in parentheses?
Yeah.
I mean quotation marks. Oh. Brutus, Cato, and Publius. So these were like nicknames that they had when they were writing. They were trying to write anonymously, meaning they didn't put their real names on there. They just said, like Alexander Hamilton. Those three guys wrote the Federalist Papers, and they signed it Publius. Means public, like the public. And then Thomas Jefferson wrote under the name Brutus and Cato, which are Roman names. So here it lists a couple of things that the Federalists were like, or Anti-Federalists were characterized. They were usually small farmers, shopkeepers, laborers. And what was Thomas Jefferson?
One of the wealthier people.
So what did he do for a living? You know?
He does something for a living.
He was president, but he had a job way before that.
I don't.
He was a farmer, huge farmer. And when I say farmer, I'm not sure he was actually digging in the dirt. He may have been. I have no idea. But he had slaves to do that for him as well. So that's why yesterday in the video, he was like, it's kind of ironic that the Anti-Federalists said they wanted more democracy, but only for some people, not for all people. Okay? Meaning the black people. Okay? Let's see. So they believed in the decency of the common man, and that basically they are also capable of actually participating in government. And they viewed elites as corrupt. What does corrupt mean?
Money. Too much power.
Maybe too much power. And what are they using their power for?
Nothing good.
Not good things, illegal stuff.
Evilness.
Yeah. So they looked for a greater protection of individual rights. Okay. They also wanted stronger state governments, more elections, smaller districts, more direct democracy. Okay. Who'd they want to be friends with? France. You add that if you haven't already.
On the Anti-Federalists?
Yes. And what kind of America did they see? How are they getting money?
Locally,
Local what though?
businesses and
Farms. So you could put like agriculture. Like we put industrial for the Federalists, I'd put agriculture for the Anti-Federalists. Agriculture for the Anti-Federalists.
How come we don't want agriculture?
Well, you can take agri in high school. Yeah.
How do you spell it?
Agriculture. AGRICULTURE. And if you want to put farming in parentheses, that's what that means. Okay, so we have closely read two documents from 1788, and it's giving very different opinions about how our country should be represented. Now, your job today and tomorrow is an assignment 3.4.1. Okay? And it's due on Monday. I'm not going to give you time on Monday. I just know that that's when it's due because you'll have all class period to work on it tomorrow. Okay. So you can compare arguments and understand their meaning. What do you think? Have you accomplished this goal today? Okay. By closely reading and giving context and sourcing this information. So if you want to take a look at the assignment, you can do that. We have 10 minutes. Actually, a little bit more. And if you have any questions about the assignment, we can go over that right now.
What's your favorite time in history?
What's my favorite time in history? Oh gosh, that's a hard question.
I love asking hard questions.
Gosh. I really like the Cold War for some reason. I don't know.
It's war.
But there wasn't actually war going on at that time. Partially because I remember when it ended, because I was alive when there was no more Soviet Union. Like I was alive when the Soviet Union was occurring, and then it changed to not the Soviet. It was very
Oh
interesting.
wait, never mind. I love conflict, so.
Well, it was a big conflict.
Good.
Oh yeah, I was like, I forgot what I was looking for.
You were looking for an assignment.
Yes, I'm finding it right here. Okay. All right, so that's where we watched the video, right? There's a summary of the biggest debate that we just read about. Let's see. So it says after. So this debate was in New York. It actually passed the Constitution by a vote of 30 to 27. That's how close the vote was. By three votes. Okay. It was the narrowest margin of victory that any state had. Okay. So if you scroll down to the blue box, you can click on the here, and a Google Doc should pop up with a graphic organizer in it. Okay. So you have the handout for you in front of you, and here are the questions. So the first column are the questions. The second column is for the Anti-Federalists, Millington Smith. The third column is for the Federalists. Okay, so you're answering the questions for both Federalists and Anti-Federalists. So this first question is this person, you say, is Millington Smith happy with how the new Constitution deals with representation? So you really have to closely look at the words he uses to find out if he's happy or not. So you don't have to tell me what the answer is, but you have two choices, right? Is he happy? Yes or no. So those are your two choices. You don't need to write incomplete sentences here. You can if you want to, but it's a one-word answer right there. All right. So then the second question, what kind of government would this person like to see? You're using these two documents, okay? You know a lot more than what these two documents say, but use these two documents to answer the question. Okay? Then you need to find a quote to support your claim. When you write a quote, what needs to be around it?
Quotation marks.
Yeah, those quotation marks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure they're there.
My mom does that when she's walking there.
I know. Yeah. So the last question, there's only 4 questions, times 2. Based on this document, document A or document B, What sort of people in society would actually support this point of view? Okay. So we don't have a whole lot of time. I just wanted to make sure I went over it with you. And if you have any questions, please ask me. Certainly have time all of tomorrow to work on this, or at least the first hour. Okay.